It's another brief moment in time. We get to see the change on the sidelines. We're shifting, twisting bits of technology, shifting, lifting up the little bits of reality. While the clear trips through the streets now, we're surely a randomly sparking the photons around me. Major bags! Grips of technology! Money and hashing your life! Static QRs, it doesn't matter! The streets change perspective!
There's a lot to XMR, quite a bit going on. Now we want to make sure we get it all covered and whatnot, so we're going to go over it over a matter of time. So today we're going to snorkel in XMR. We're going to do some snorkeling. We're not going to dive in deep tonight. No, that will be next time. So XMR is a hell of a blockchain with technology not really seen throughout the blockverse. Now, we are going to take a snorkel of a dive today to cover some of the most controversial parts of XMR. How it works, basically. This is such a huge topic because so few people really know how XMR works. This is similar to the Bitcoin. No one knows Bitcoin, but a more realistic perspective. When I say there's a few people that actually know how XMR works or Monero works, I mean that literally. There is few people that know exactly how things are done under the hood to get things done. Now, a lot of people know the general process, the general points, the general perspective of XMR. And today we are going to cover someone who is one of those people who actually does know how XMR works. And I think that's probably the biggest point to go right now is that you can listen to a lot of people talk about Monero, but not a whole lot of people are actually going to know about Monero. Like, not a whole lot of them are going to know it, like the guy we're going to showcase today. So before we go any further, I do want to thank our partnerships, our network sponsors. So I want to thank The Organized for teaming up with Bitcoin Live Digital Broadcasting DB, because Bitcoin Live DB and The Organized is a powerhouse combo. I've seen new heights for both organizations. Now, if you haven't checked out The Organized early morning broadcast for stacks and other topics, well, they seem to be taking off with more people every day. We'll check them out in the mornings and afternoons. Find them on X social platforms or basically anywhere you're watching this right now, including some more. So I also want to thank our sponsor, because yes, we do have a sponsor. It's such a great sponsor. Thank our sponsor, because yes, we do have a sponsor. It's such a great sponsor. We do love them. Okay, come on. There we go. Sorry, computer's real slow today. Alright, so I want to thank the sponsor, Shieldfolio, for sponsoring today's episode from within a quantum bit, as well as the Bitcoin Live DB network. Now, if you haven't actually seen a Shieldfolio, well, they're a little black book made from stone paper. So they're fade resistant, tear resistant, even water resistant. So you know all the info and secrets you store in your Shieldfolio will last and survive whatever you throw. Use it for my website info, contact keys, crypto keys, among other things. So these are like your little black books that are pocket-sized or ready to be by your side, regardless of your adventure in real life or online. Now, I really do actually own one of these, and I actually do really recommend them. They are, like I said, a little black book that people used to have all the time. They would keep all sorts of stuff in it, and this is exactly that. Now, they do have other specialty cards and things on their website, but if you go to the website by scanning the QR code on your screen right now and use the promo code BitcoinLive20, you can actually get 20% off your order today. Now, throughout the whole episode, you will see that QR in the middle of the screen with the little shield and the lady freaking out about it because she can't believe you're getting such a great deal. Remember, Bitcoin Live 20, get 20% off on your next one. Now let's roll in with the roll-ins before we go any further. Thank you again, Shieldfolio, for sponsoring today's episode. Alright. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Hold on, I gotta pull up the thing. To the photon of the greater fourth dimension quantum machine. We are here today, and we're going to do it like we do every time we do this. Right here on the main screen, every place we go to, you're gonna see this little bad boy. Whoop, hop in. Let me see. Yep. Come on. There we go. All right. We're going to get one of these on your screen for everywhere we go, so that way you can catch up, stay along, and follow where we are. I'm going to let you know right now, in case you didn't see it, it just popped in. The chat is ready. Wherever you're at, there should be a chat board somewhere that you can actually say hello, ask a question, do whatever. Well, you can now see that on your screen as you do it. And I will be able to see it, which means I'll be able to respond, and we'll be able to keep on going. So if you have any questions about Monero while we're going, please ask them. Because any question asked today, not answered today, we will answer another day. So, if you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, there's a bunch of description links for you to be able to click on, and that's going to be everywhere we're going today. So if you do want to ask a question to appear in a future episode, ask it on the YouTube channel. Go ahead, hit up the YouTube channel. It is the Bitcoin Live DB YouTube channel, and just check them out. Because this video right here under the live section, you're going to want to comment on your XMR. Comment if you didn't get in while we were live. Okay. So what we're looking at in front of you right here, the very first page, this is the organized. This is the people who are going popping every day. Like literally they go live almost every morning and every evening with Bitcoin and stacking stacks and other things. So they're kind of like your daily hookup for what's digitally popping. And you can see they even promoting us up on here at the same time. So lots of stuff going on. Now I want to go ahead and give you guys your free pre-search query of the day, because we do this for every episode now, or we try to. Today's free pre-search query is XMR tech details. Like always, I did not use this query in today's episode. Research. But that doesn't mean we won't have some overlapping links. Now, if anything about today's episode interests you, use this free pre-search query. Should help you find basically all the tech tips you might need about Monero. And you can basically use it with the pre-search AIs. We have this little thing right here. We can just click and it will pop down, show you some of the information right there. And you can actually basically use this, just click that QR, scan it, and use this after today's episode to drop into the rabbit hole of Monero tech details. And you can actually do this for about any coin you want through pre-search. This is the heads up. Alright, so we're going to keep going. We're going to keep moving. So this is who we're talking about today. Today we're talking with Johnny Law. But give me a second, okay? Before we do anything, let's catch up for a second. Alright? Monero, it is an elder coin on the privacy sector in the blockchain space. There is some history we're going to need to cover, but I'm actually going to cover all that in a different episode. This there is actually quite a bit going on with XMR right now, and this is how we're going to do the shallow dive. We're going to look at some of the controversial things going on in Monero right now to show you why it's so difficult to understand Monero. So one of the reasons why I've never done a deep dive on Monero is Monero changes every 6 months. There's some kind of alter adjustment. They do a 6-month planning thing. Every 6 months, there's something changed. So anything I talk about Monero, only a matter of time before it becomes inaccurate. That's the other problem about Monero. If you're not constantly staying up on it, you're not constantly learning about it, you're not constantly paying attention to it, you get behind so quickly. It's just like a drop in the hat. Within a few months to a year, you are not correct about your perspective on Monero. And that is why we're going to be covering one of the bigger researchers, and they've been taking time to explain in depth of detail about the tech in a way that I like to call it a shallow dive, because he explains it not to a T, but enough to damn near make the T. So let's go ahead. I already kind of showed you what's up. So let's get into this Ring House of Madness and actually show you what thank you, Johnny Law has to offer. All right, so if you're not here following Mr. Johnny Law, go ahead. He's an independent analyst whose research will be receiving today as that Snorkel. So again, please give Johnny a follow after the show. Here he is on Twitter. Yeah, so here is the first article, and yes, this is an ex-Twitter article. Nice. So debunking the Monero attack rumors, a data-driven look at chain stability. Before I get into it, that alone, right there, that should tell you something. Okay, the fact that attack rumors, that there's a lot of times there's rumors of attack. There used to be some like $7 double spin. Well, there was a $7 double spin, but they considered that to be an attack. So that double spin was considered an attack one time on Bitcoin, and really it was a Coinbase company kind of screwing everybody over by pre-allowing some transaction they should have never allowed. And just hearing what I said there probably sounds stupid. But a lot of stuff that this guy is going to be saying hopefully won't sound stupid, but there's a chance it might. And that's because some of the stuff that goes on with blockchain technology gets confusing. It's with Monero, it's probably more confusing on purpose than other chains. Okay. So over the past few days, social media and some crypto forums have been buzzing with claims of active attack on the Monero blockchain, implying deep reorganizations and sustained hash rate manipulation. To separate fact from speculation, we pulled direct RPC data from the local synced Monero node and examined the network's actual reorg history, hash rate, and pool distribution. The reason why that is so freaking important, just hearing that phrase right there, we pulled direct RPC data from the local synced Monero node and examined the network's actual reorg history, hash rate, and pool distribution. Is with all blockchains, your explorers online are not your explorers. Unlike how the cloud is someone else's computer, an online explorer is not meant for anybody. An online explorer is literally meant for those who don't have a node. It's supposed to be used for non-verified predeterminable checks. That means that you're not verifying data. You're literally just looking at data. The accuracy of that data does not need to exist. So pulling all of the information from your actual local node excuse me, is extremely important. And that's kind of how it should be for everybody. Pulling the data from your node is extremely important. So let's go into it. The verdict: the numbers do not support the attack narrative. Why a reorg on Monero is less spooky than on Bitcoin. So in Bitcoin, the most transparent UTXO chain type blah blah blah. Oh no, and most transparent UTXO chains. Basically, transactions in orphan blocks are publicly visible and can be selectively mined or remined, enabling targeted double spins. This makes even shallow reorgs a potential tool for deliberate financial attacks. Remember I was saying earlier on Bitcoin, there was a company who approved a transaction they shouldn't have approved. That first statement damn near explains in better detail what I'm actually saying. Where this company approved the transaction, that block became orphaned. It was then double spent by that company. So it gets confusing. And that's a $7. That was a $7 double spin. So Monero is different. Its transactions are private by design. Even if a block is orphaned, the containers are shielded, or the contents are shielded. Without public meaningful visibility or clear transaction origin destination, meaning you have the way to view it, you have a view key or something like that, executing a profitable targeted double spin is actually vastly more difficult. This is why Monero reorg, while still worth monitoring, is inherently less dangerous from a theft perspective than a Bitcoin one. So I think that kind of explains some more information here, is the fact that all the data inside these things are kind of shielded from everybody else unless you have a special key that you can sign to see what's inside, or to see where it came from, or to see certain things that you are able to use as verification. What you're going to see, yeah. So that's kind of why they're saying, like, it's not that bad here, simply because it can't be abused. But in some people, they're like, well, that's a money someone was supposed to have. Correct. That's money someone was supposed to have. And there's a really good chance that because we don't know what all is going on, that orphan block with Monero, I mean, it really don't matter. Like, when you talk to people who use Monero for what Monero is, they do not, like, you talk about orphan blocks and they just kind of roll their eyes. And that, you can kind of probably hear it in my voice. It's really what it is with Monero. Bitcoin, it's kind of really important. You want to check, is that mine? Or, because, like, with, like, you can send large amounts of money with Monero, right? You can send large amounts of money with Bitcoin. I think everybody would agree Bitcoin is worth more than Monero. And there's a chance that that whole transparent part might be a key factor there. And, well, let's keep going. I don't think there's anything else I want to add about that. I was thinking. So, recent orphan history, data not drama. Okay. To evaluate claims of instability, we queried our local node for alternative chains and calculated the reorg depth. This is actually important. He went through and said, look, find other chains. Find them. Tell me how big they are. Let's look at it. Because even in Bitcoin, just because, you know, your node isn't paying attention to all the other stuff, doesn't mean you can't, you know, collect data off of it too at the same time. So, network health check, mid-August 2025. Now, this is something people used to do all the time, so I'm kind of glad to see it's still going on. Over the past 2 weeks, there has been approximately 10,080 blocks in Monero, 122nd target, which is about right. Total reorg blocks, about 118. Total reorg events, though, 85. Whoa, that means there's some, whoa, that's a, Normally, like with Bitcoin and stuff, you'll have one reorg event with multiple blocks. That means there was many reorg events that probably didn't even have a whole block or a block. It's very confusing. So average orphan blocks per day is about 8. About 8. See how there's a decimal there? See what I mean? Like, some of them probably unsuccessful. So average reorg events per day is about 6. Very weird, right? Share total blocks affected, about 1%. And that is a huge difference. So the amount of blocks technically affected is about 1%. So a vast majority of blocks were 1 block long. A small number were actually 2 to 7 blocks long. All observed alternative chains were behind the main chain in cumulative difficulty. meaning no sustained equal or greater difficulty competitor was observed. And that's really important because this is a major difference between, actually, no, I think Bitcoin does something similar too. Cumulative difficulty is very, very special. It allows the possibly longer chain to always be longest. Because it doesn't actually matter about which chain is longer. That was like a young chain cares about that. Because a young chain doesn't have a cumulative difficulty very much. Meaning a shadow chain could gain a higher cumulative difficulty and a longer respective chain, which would then equal dominance over node priority. Still, nodes can ignore it. Like, that's the other thing. Like, we're at a point now where we have so much technology in this blockchain space and the nodes specifically, and the miners specifically, that we could just actually ignore longer, more cumulative difficult chains, knowing that they're just not the right chain. Like, it's weird, but it's kind of cool that we're actually at a point now where blockchain technology is getting that exact. Where, yeah, sure, it's based off of dynamic possibility. Doesn't mean it has to be, but it is. It actually is. The individual persons can take off the dynamicness if they choose to, and that's what I really mean. So this guy gives his interpretation of all this information, which is this is consistent with normal background orphaning due to network latency and simultaneous block binds. There is no evidence here of an ongoing deep reorg attack. Now, I'm going to explain that a little bit more and expand on that by saying what he's really getting at is some of these reorgs are blocks that have already been blocked. And then some of these are blocks that get in later. You know, it happens. With Monero, because it's much faster time perspective, finding multiple blocks at the exact same time is a lot more common. And as we see here, about 6 times more common than most chains. Well, shouldn't say that. 6 times more common than paper build versions of blockchain. Paper build versions of blockchains don't have them. So it's the only time they don't exist. And that's going to be where other people are going to think from. They're going to be thinking the white paper, they're going to be thinking the paper side of cryptocurrency. And that gets very confusing because you have script side, paper side, work side, node side, user side, and then the actual thing. Like, there's 6 completely different parts or sections or perspectives on all cryptocurrencies. And Monero, when it gets down to like work side, it gets a little bit more difficult because there's more than one way to do it. And what I mean by that is you have standard, I have a miner, I have a node, I mine. Then you have non-standard, I have a miner, I don't have a node, I mine. And then you have hive mining, where I have a node, I mine. Wait, what? Because you're offering node service to hive miners. So you are mining, but someone else is doing all the major work. You're just doing some part of it. So you do have a miner. And other people might have hundreds of miners. You might have hundreds. It doesn't matter. And the fact that there's different ways to mine is going to make a huge difference on things. Because like he said, it was like only 1% of blocks were actually affected from all these different reorganizations. 118 of them, right? So that means that some of the reorgs were still used, just not at that point in time. The hash rate, reality check. From the node's own get info RPC, current difficulty, huge numbers. I do like the 669 and 928. Those are both nice. And then if it was a 255, I'd be like, oh yeah, because it's a 722. I mean, like 255 bits is a thing. Okay. So target block time 120 seconds. Not very long, about 2 minutes. Estimated network hash rate 5.5 gigahash. What? 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 Magic, right? Monero has this thing where they don't allow ASIC miners, and they don't allow machines that could be ASIC miners. There's a lot of different things that can't mine Monero anymore, and that's half the reason for the every 6 month thing. Every 6 months, it's a little bit more difficult to mine Monero. So because the hash rate is computed directly from difficulty and block target, it cannot be faked by an external website. While public mining dashboards can be manipulated or delayed, the local node's difficulty reading affects actual consensus state. And that is why having your own local node is important. So, pool attribution, no clear single entity dominance. We swapped 100 recent block Coinbase transactions, extracted miner tags where present, and matched them to known pool identifiers like Monero Ocean, Support XMR, P2P, Pool, Nano Pool, Hero Miners. You know, things are all in the major ones right there. I mean, I use Monero Ocean myself. So, many blocks lacked pool tags, but no single identifiable pool dominated the majority. A significant share came from unknown or untagged miners, typically of Monero's privacy-friendly ecosystem. Nice. Compared to Bitcoin's orphan history, Bitcoin has also experienced many orphan chains, some of them several blocks deep, even in periods of relative network stability. The difference is that Bitcoin's transparent ledger means these events can be exploited with precision. In Monero, the lack of transaction visibility makes such attacks far less practical. We pretty much already heard all that, so he's just kind of basically letting you know Bitcoin does reorg. So based on the past 2 weeks of live chain data, Monero's recent reorg pattern is well within historic norms. While the privacy model makes it impossible to know exactly what transactions were orphaned, the depth and frequency do not match the scale of an attack, like an active attack. Sorry, I missed that one word. That's probably kind of important there. The rumors thrive on the absence of facts. Let's stick to the verifiable on-chain measurements rather than relying on manipulated dashboards or hearsay. Now, I kind of wish I had saved it. Man, let me see what this. Some additional details on some of the longer selfish mining orphan chains. Longest orphan chain events last 2 weeks. If I were to events, some that we already just read. Oh, so these are the top ones. 76643. Oh. I don't see anything bad there. They're all behind, slightly. And blocks man. Whoa! How did? What? Damn. Yeah. I'm looking at the number. Okay. This one right here. Both of these sixes are under 2,000 blocks from the main chain. That's very close to the main chain. And you see percentage behind chain is not much. 2%. Less than 2%. 0.2%. 0.2%. And this one right here is 2.6. Woo. Somehow, I mean, like, man, people are starting to get. But it doesn't matter. I don't know. That's me nerding out there for a second. Okay. So, and I'm sure if we go down here, there's probably people, yeah, like you're downsizing the whole thing and misleading. Can you share info about how many times they were 67 blocks in our history? Why does that have to be throughout the Monero history? Like this person, this Monero didn't even read. And that a lot of people are just going to come in here and say crap that doesn't make sense. Like, can you share verifiable info on how many times there was a throughout Monero's history? No, most people are not going to be able to. They're not recording it all the time. When was it? 6-7 blocks reorg, 1 to 3 blocks are two different things. Technically, 6 to 7 and 1 to 3 are 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Yeah, I had to double check on my math there, as you just heard me do. This Menzel is acting like, with Monero, is acting like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, if you said 7 block reorg, yeah, we'd all be freaking out. Okay. So, we're going to go into this one. So, some of these, or one of these are actually going to have information on how to do this. So, monitoring Monero real-time reorg detection and why XMR chain splits are rarely cause for alarm. So, plain and brief. Unlike many proof-of-work UTXO blockchains, Monero's block reorgs are almost always short-lived, low-risk, and economically impractical for attackers. In the live test of my node, dozens of alternative chains appeared, but every single one was hundreds of thousands of blocks worth of work behind the main chain. That's a huge thing. Hundreds to thousands of blocks behind the main chain. The longest fork I observed was 7 blocks long and 331 blocks behind the cumulative difficulty. Huge fork, by the way. That's what the guy's complaining about. There was a fork in the chain, 6 to 7 blocks, and the guy's freaking out because 6 to 7 is much greater than 1 to 3. Orphan. Doesn't really matter. And it's like, I know, like, with, you can always reintroduce an orphan chain, but that last part here, 331 blocks behind and any cumulative difficulty behind, no one's gonna care. That's impossible gap to catch up without massive sustained hash rate control, and the cost would far outweigh any potential reward. Yeah, it's keeping the value of it down kind of low isn't bad. And to be honest, Monero is kind of locked in with Bitcoin, so they both kind of go up and down in relation to each other. Well, Monero goes up and down in relation to Bitcoin. Yeah. So, in other proof of work UTXOs, reorgs can be a red flag for double spend attacks against exchanges or merchants, selfish mining attacks, where miners reveal a longer hidden chain, like that's where someone is trying to do like a shadow chain or something and trying to make it the longer chain or whatever. Network instability due to poor difficult adjustment or partitioning. Yeah, there's a lot of UTXO systems where the network stability is bad. So for coins without Monero's protections, even a small fork can sometimes gain ground in difficulty adjustment lags, or if hash rate centralization is high. Monero's design makes this much harder. Why Monero reorgs are less risky? Smooth per block difficulty adjustments. Each new block's difficulty is recalculated from a rolling median of recent blocks, preventing sudden difficulty drops that attackers could exploit. Penalty for oversized blocks. Larger than normal blocks reduce miner rewards, discouraging bloat tactics to push an alternative chain forward. High chain density and short block time. 2-minute block target means an attacker must outpace the honest network at a sustained rate time, making long-range catch-ups costly. Privacy layer reduces targeting. So Ring CT is stealth addresses high transaction details, making profitable target double spends attempts much harder to plan. How I monitored reorgs in real time. To prove this is practical, I ran the live monitor using Monero's RPC API and jQuery. Yeah. So get the main chain's difficulty. Here's the here it is. Here it is. Here you go. Boom. Here's the main chain difficulty. Now check the alternative chains. Oh, guess what? There it is. There's the alternative chains. Sample the output. Remember that one guy that was saying he wanted the sky to show it? Here it is. Here's the info. So that guy who was asking about those questions could just come in here, grab this stuff, jump on his node, pop it in, get something. All forks were behind in cumulative difficulty. None were near the main chain in a meaningful way. The largest gap exceeded over 300 blocks. Conclusion. Monero reorgs are expected and less harmful and are harmless under most conditions. I said less harmful, and it says harmless on there. Give me a minute to get my head to get my brain to see the correct word. They resolve quickly. They rarely get close to overtaking the main chain, and economic and protocol rules make malicious long-range reorgs unprofitable. So a real-time monitor like this gives you quick, sustainable, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, being able to just pull this information, check it out, and read it and look at it and everything, it makes this huge difference. It really assists in you knowing how this stuff works. Which is why it's important to run your own node. Now, I know node technologies are not the best, and as the world continues, node technologies only have been getting better, so there is hope out there. Now, I wanted to bring this one in because there were some statements in that last one that for a lot of people, they're going to be like, I don't know what any of that means. And I get you. I get it. So, this is going to explain some of those key terms to help you understand. Cumulative difficulty is a tiebreaker. In Monero and many proof of work chains, the longest chain isn't actually measured by block count. It's measured by cumulative difficulty, the sum of the individual block difficulties. If the attacker fork has lower cumulative difficulty than the main chain, the network will reject it, even if it's longer in actual block count. A sustained high hash rate is required to keep pace with the main chain's cumulative difficulty. So, if difficulty goes low, which, like, okay, so let me put it to you this way. You're running a shadow chain on your own. You don't have a whole lot of competition. So your difficulty is low for every single one of your blocks. Guess what? The real chain's difficulty is much higher than yours because there's a lot more competition. So a real shadow chain to actually compete with a real chain has to have near identical hash competition as the real network, which is meaning they're actually going to need whatever the real network has plus more to be able to go faster to get a higher cumulative block while being near or close to the endpoint of the real chain. And why is that important? Is because we still look at the last chain we were looking at. We don't just like automatically go, oh, new chain. We're still looking at the old chain. Okay? And then other people start looking at this other chain. Some people are going to look at both and compare. And so if you have a shadow chain that pops up out of nowhere, that's like thousands of blocks ahead, and the cumulative difficulty is about the same, it ain't going to be the same. So you need the cumulative difficulty to be slightly higher while the block length is about the same. And it's very difficult to do. Because like I said, you're going to have to basically mimic the entire difficulty that exists in real life with more difficulty, like with more. So if the attacker's fork, okay, like you said. So rolling median difficulty helps keep you honest. Because Monero adjusts difficulty every block using a rolling median of recent blocks. If the attacker mines slower than the main network for a while, their fork's difficulty will just downward. Once their difficulty drops, they can mine faster and block count, but the cumulative difficulty still grows more slowly than the honest chain. This prevents the classic attack where someone slowed difficulty then blasts through an easy block to overtake. And I mean, to be honest, that classic attack is very old, very, very old. It's technically before Bitcoin. We only had, like, I think, one attempt of something like that on Bitcoin from my memory. There were 2 points in time after that where it could have actually been done, but didn't get done. We got so fucking lucky because we were like, there's 2 different points in time where Bitcoin had near death spiral, and now we're at a point where that probably would not be possible, thankfully. But there were definitely 2 points in Bitcoin's history where someone could have overtaken it with a shadow chain because we were near death spiral. So, high block frequency magnifies the problem. With 2-minute block targets, the honest network is adding difficulty to the main chain very quickly. For the attacker to catch up, they must not only match this pace, but also make up the difficulty gap, which means mining far more than 51% hash rate for a sustained period. And with Bitcoin, it's 51% hash rate and 51% of the miners. And a lot of people forget that. So with Monero, it's strictly hash power, which, hate to be honest, is basically the same thing as 51% of the hash rate and 51% of the miners. But with Monero, it's not actually 51% of the miners. It's like 51% of the blocks. So you need to have equivalent difficulty near chain in with 51% of the blocks and a sustained 51% hash rate. And like you said, it's actually far more than that. And to be honest, when you were saying hash power, we were saying it's going to be that number for both blocks and the hash rate, meaning they're probably going to need closer to 70 or like 64 to 70 hash power, because they're gonna, like we just said it earlier, they're gonna need that extra oomph to cover that gap. Okay, so what RPC outputs shows. The live RPC jQuery's output showed, well, all forks are far behind in cumulative difficulty. None are near the main chain. That near is kind of important, because once you start getting near and your blocks are near, you have a chance. That means every detected alternative chain was at much lower difficulty. And so no one could replace the main chain, regardless of their links. So the bottom line, if your 51% attack splits off and lets their private chain's difficulty fall below the main chains, they won't be able to fork it into the main network later unless they temporarily control a much higher percentage of the total hash rate to close the difficulty gap. In practice, with Monero's algorithm and block timing, this becomes a very costly and obvious. This becomes very costly and obvious. And he's got a point there. Like, the Monero's algorithm is designed to be, it shows its problems. If that makes any sense. So, and I think that's a very good point. It is extremely costly. Most blockchains that are older than like 4 years, it's going to start becoming costly to just strictly do anything attackative onto it. This guy's absolutely right. The time waiting factor was actually explained. It wasn't said time waiting factor. And that's why this guy said plus. Brandy anarchist, sure, he might know something about Monero, but he was not able to pick up that he talks about that. Well, and here he's talking about the rolling, yeah, different terms. Time weighting factor. Well, I would say rolling median is the same phrasement, just different words. Like the way he describes it, this is the same thing. But you gotta remember there's no time in blocks. And in blockchain, there is no time. That's something that everyone forgets. Alright, so we are going to go to this website. So basically, this is the website that was on Johnny Law's ex-Twitter bio. So we go over here. He's got aroundtheblock.us/community. And so here we go. This is that website right here, especially the community page. Basically, if you're interested in this info, especially if you're interested in Digibyte, which is a completely different cryptocurrency, take a peek into this website. Take a peek into this little community tab. A lot of what he has in here is for Digibyte. But it just shows that this, not only is it this website and stuff about a community, whatever, but it's not just about Monero, right? This is where this is gonna help. You come in here and you help this person, that helps this person, and that helps us, right? We're gonna go to the next stop. Next stop is this. So something notable on this website basically is this transcript right here. So there's a lot of information, blah 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 blah. Go down to the actual transcript. Third party that constitute the transaction, contract, or scheme is the security further of today. There is no simple case law addressing the application of the housing. So some fun stuff right here to read. When I was reading through it, I was like, I find this stuff interesting. Millions of jobs solidified the United States' position. The global economic legal blockchain represents the next phase of the network computer systems, whereas client server systems rely on point-to-point communication. Blockchains facilitate to many communications, allowing multiple computers to collaborate, achieve consensus, act in unison, and share services under the adverse network conditions. That this enables the development of unique digital assets and more efficient financial services, programmable assets, and computer games, digital identity solutions, among other innovative applications. The full written testimony explains of blockchain applications that are tangible and improve people's lives, and the implications of the breakthroughs are far-reaching because blockchain, the digital uniqueness it creates, will allow us to redefine trust, ownership, commercial recreation, and communication is also ultimately transforming how we interact with digital systems and with each other. That's determined of the regulatory regime for the blockchains must start and end with functionality and features of the digital assets, not the technology used to create them. At the Java Labs, we call this a sustainable token classification. Blockchains have, so you can see a lot of fun words. All right, I get really into it. I really like this kind of stuff. So I thought you guys might enjoy it if you like this kind of stuff too. Now, this right here is actually the bread and butter, I would say, of this website for most people. References. So if we come in here, we can actually see like this, like transaction script evolution is kind of showing you how transactions changed over the years. Don't get this. Okay, so right here it says introduced in the Genesis block. No, there was no transactions in the Genesis block. Keep that in mind. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Bitcoin did not have transactions until like 2010. Okay. And I have to say it over and over and over. It used to be known information. Everybody used to know it, but there was only like 38 people in Bitcoin back then. So like the number of people who could not send a transaction to each other was next to none. Because people would just send the private keys. That was the original way to send money on Bitcoin, was send your private key. And then they would sweep it. You would see it got swept. You knew it was done. Transaction was finalized. So it was like, no, 2009 is not the correct year. It should be 2010. when that was added. And you want to know who added transactions to the Bitcoin? It was Hal Finney. Because that was why Hal Finney was contacted. Hal Finney was contacted because the people behind Satoshi Nakamoto, whatever, the people behind Bitcoin, the team couldn't figure out how to get transactions to work properly. Sure, there was code in there, but it didn't do anything. It didn't actually work. So, pay to public key hash. You see early standard 2010. Okay. P to SH, script hash, 2012. SegWit, 2017. Actually, no, that should be right. Yeah. I was like, I could have sworn it's 2016, but I think it was talked about in 2016, but then put into 2017. Taproot, 2021. This is actually really cool. Might not be perfectly accurate, but it's accurate enough. Right? And that's what matters. So this is the type of information this guy is pulling out and putting on the table. Okay? And this is the type of information we want to skim with, because there is quite a bit to go into with Bitcoin. There is my bad, I said Bitcoin. Monero. There's so much to talk about with Monero. It really is. And I want to go into it. So I want to spend the next few episodes talking about one type of technology in Monero at a time before we do the most deepest dive I can do, because we're going to cover the main technologies in Monero separately. And then we're going to do a dive down. We're just going to do like one episode talking about it all as fast as possible, not covering everything in detail, but to give you guys the full depth of value that Monero has to offer. Because if there's an iceberg in the crypto waters, it's Monero. Let's be honest, this is a mild dip into the waters of Monero. It's complicated and often changes, which is why I wanted to showcase confusion in the community to start. Because the reason the confusion is there is because the constant changes and people having to leave and enter the XMR system at will, sometimes for years off chain at a time. So there is much going on, but at the same time, Monero is a unique token that has features not many would consider features in a blockchain. So keep in mind, we are going to take some time to deeply dive into Monero over the next handful of episodes. All right, 4 or 5, I'm not sure exactly how many. So come back in 2 weeks with your flippers and your goggles and get ready for the first deep dive into Monero. And as always, may Satoshi find your wallet.
Did you think you know? Did you think you hold? Did you think something new? That's the goal, to see from a new degree. Get to change your mind, need to find something new. Life is suddenly is easy for many, but when a wall appears, sometimes up is all you see. So let 3D guide to the side, yo. When there's a door, though, just be careful on your way out, for the first step is a do-see-do. A little bit honest with something different, it's almost like he's something else. And regardless of maybe, perhaps it was that missing piece you was needing. Maybe it was that simple message you was searching. Definitely it's just in different times, a different mental mindset, separating us from our own mental mindset. Boom goes the blast of thought. Boom goes the last spark with thought. Boom goes the mental mindset. Hold your perspective, hit on the way out. Don't let your directive stop you when you doubt. Don't let the dire detection stop you from being. Getting excited, so the photons are delighted. Don't hesitate so we can line up the hash rate. Let me surmise the time to lift the rate and reduce the fate. joining the show. Please return next time for a new of perspective. Thank you for joining the show. Please return next time for a brand new perspective. Of perspective. Please return next time for a brand new perspective. Thank you for joining the show. Please return next time for